and it is 10:30 a.m. here in Houston, Texas, where we are based. And I know we have people from different time zones. So I want to welcome everyone to our meeting this morning. It's a special morning here for us because we have a very dear friend of ours joining us this morning, Luiz Lima, who we've met a long time ago. I'm not going to disclose when because that's going to show our age. But we've been on this road for a long time. And Luis is based out of Orlando, Florida. So Eastern Time. Thanks for joining us. I'm gonna introduce Luis in a minute here. But first, I'm gonna welcome everybody, and I'm going to ask Erica to do our initial prayer. Then I'm gonna introduce Luis, and I'm gonna turn to you, Luis, after I introduce you. So, Erica, do you want to do our initial prayer this morning? Thank you so much.
Yes. Then good morning, everybody. Let's start this prayer by closing our eyes and cleaning our mind from any thought that can be present right now in our minds. Dear God, thank you for every person that has joined today our public study, for each mind and heart that feels the presence of this virtual meeting. We wanted to thank you to bring us together, especially on behalf of Sunrise. We wanted to appreciate the presence of Luiz Lima, that will share his words and thoughts with us during this public study. Oh Father, praise you for this event and your purpose for it. We know that when we get together here, you, God, always have a divine agenda and will support us through this event. Please take what we have prepared with a lot of love and multiply our efforts as long you know how. Steer our intentions to align with your righteous will. Bless this meeting today, all those present, especially Luiz Lima, as well as the others that we are not able to be here today. Keep love at the forefront of our minds today and the guiding light for all we set out to accomplish. Que assim seja. Amém.
Thank you so much, Erica, for the beautiful prayer. So again, good morning, everybody. For those of you who just joined, you missed a really, really good prayer. Thank you so much, Erica. I'm gonna introduce our, special friend this morning here with us, Luis. Then we'll go through the public talk, and we'll have potentially some time for Q&A. So put your questions, please, on the chat, and then we'll do the final prayer with Christina, and Claudine is going to do the announcement. So today we have Luis Lima talking to us about aspects of divine justice. Luis Lima was born in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, and then in 1990 he moved to the United States, where he came in contact with Spiritism a few years later. He's been lecturing on Spiritism in both Portuguese and English in local and national seminars and events. Luis holds a bachelor's degree in engineering and currently works in the computer network industry. Luis, thank you so much for being here with us. The floor is yours.
The screen is mine.
The screen is yours. The virtual floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Sunrise Spiritist Society, for having me today. It's a great pleasure to be here and to take upon this, I would say, to say the least, very challenging subject that I call aspects of divine justice. Divine justice is one of these things that is very hard for us to understand and to comply to, apparently. So we wanted to touch bases on a few things that probably that's where, our connection to divine justice is lost. So we want to bring these points, and it's really going to be interesting if you can participate with questions and comments and suggestions. So I'm going to start with a question. Okay, so just listen to the question, think about it. Actually, you can think about it for the whole presentation here, because we're going to come back to it at the end and try to respond to that. Here's the question. Do you think that the crucifixion of Jesus was just and fair? Wow, tough question, but that's not all of it, because you can just say yes or no here. But why? How you yourself, not to me, how do you justify your answer to yourself? Okay, so was the crucifixion of Jesus just and fair, and why? Well, we can have different opinions, different people think different ways. Of course, for Spiritism, there's only one answer, and we're going to bring it to you at the end. You know, why exactly with or Spiritism considers it to be just and fair or not just and fair. Okay, so have that in the back of your mind. In order to do this, we need to develop the subject a little bit, trying to understand divine justice so we can answer to the question. So we're going to start. We're going to do 5 case studies here real quick before we can actually come back to the question and respond to it. And the first one is the citizenship of Dred Scott. Dred Scott, this is actually here in the US in 1857. 1857, the codification is being born in France, and we are here struggling with something else, which is slavery. Dred Scott, he was born a slave in the state of Missouri at the time, and his owner sold him at a certain point to somebody else. The new owner moved from Missouri to the state of Illinois, and then later on he was sold again and moved to the state of Wisconsin. The states of Illinois and Wisconsin at the time, of course, they were states where slavery was illegal. So, and he had been in these 2 states back and forth for 4 years. So at a certain point, he said, hold on, I've been living for more than 4 years in states there where slavery is illegal. So I think I deserve the United States citizenship, American citizenship. So he goes into the proper channels, through the proper channels, fills out the paperwork, requesting American citizenship for himself and his wife, Henriette. So, of course, you know, they got together and they declined. So they decided for 7-2 votes against giving him the citizenship. But all 9 judges, the result was 7 against him, 2 in favor, so 9 judges. The judges cannot just say yes or no. They have to write a justification on why they're voting yes, why they're voting no. And that creates a lot of paperwork. And from that paperwork, from that entire collection of paperwork, we extracted 6 phrases. These are not my words. Number 1, a Negro is not a human person and is property of his owner. Wow. A free Negro of the African race is not a citizen within the meaning of the Constitution of the USA. Oof. They, Negroes, are regarded as being of an inferior order with no rights, which the white man was bound to respect. Those who believe slavery is wrong should simply refrain from having slaves. A man has the right to do anything he wants with his property, including his slaves. And here's the last one. The Negro might justly and lawfully be reduced to slavery for his own benefit. Oof. We need a moment to breathe, right? After all of this. This is 1857, 160 some years ago. Wow. Now, for us, we look at this and it really makes us think about it. But for the time this came out, it wasn't anything absurd. It wasn't anything out of the ordinary. It was a sentence that everybody said, oh yeah, that's okay. Just another case, just another sentence. Nothing to worry about, nothing to be, discussing about. You see, try to get into the state of mind of the time, right? And then his case, Dred Scott's case, is a pivot case in the American Declaration of non-slavery in this country, which happened only 6 years after that. Wow. Okay. What do we take from this when we are talking about divine justice? Would God ever write these 6 phrases that you see here? I don't think so. I don't think so. But we did. We as people, incarnates or society or citizens, we did. So there are aspects of the human justice which are not part of divine justice. One of them is time. Time matters. You see, this was in 1857, 7 years later. We had a totally different thing. The outcome would have been different if he had asked for the citizenship, let's say 10 years after that. So time matters. Time makes the law change. Place matters. If that would have happened in another state, maybe in another country or something, it would produce a different outcome. So time matters, place matters. And a third aspect here, on this case, we're going to look at more cases. On this case, social status matter. Well, when you look at these 3 things, time, place, and social status, I don't think divine justice uses any of these for any sort of outcome. These are human aspects of justice, not divine aspects of justice. All right, so we saw 3 things. Let's go into more. Let's look at this case number 2 here. One of the most famous, unfortunately famous, in terms of curiosity from tourists all over the world, especially Europe, the community of Rocinha. It's a big slum community in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. When you look at this picture here, you don't have to know what the city looks like, but just looking at the picture, you see some nice buildings on the back part of the picture. On the front part, that's where the Rocinha community is. And you can tell the difference. There's a tremendous difference of wealth just by looking at the picture. This community is surrounded by the 2 most, I would say, wealthy or the wealthiest neighborhoods in the country, not in the city. Okay, so it's stuck right in between. The population on this community is about 70,000 people. And you're going to say, hey, listen, I'm not good at numbers. I don't know what 70,000 people mean. Can you give me a reference? Sure. Here's a reference. Houston, Texas. Back to you guys, right? 2.1 million. So that's 32 times almost the size of Rocinha. Dallas, Texas, 1.2 million. New York City, 8.1 million. So 70,000, when you look at these 3 cities here that are listed, which are, of course, big cities, Houston being the 4th largest city in the U.S., you say, wow, that's a small, it's a small community. Yes, it is. But the density, what is density? Number of inhabitants per square kilometer. The density in Rocinha is 48,000 people per square kilometers. Compared to the other 3 cities here that we showed, Houston, 1,300, say 1,400. Dallas, 1,500. New York City, New York City, Manhattan, all those people hitting themselves shoulder by shoulder, 10,000. Rocinha, 48,000. So you have, this is packed with people living side by side or shoulder by shoulder like that. Now, here's another picture that you see taken from further down. So you can see the wealthy neighborhoods on the back of the picture and community of Rocinha on the front. And this became an iconic picture. This shows one of the boundaries. So on the left side, you have the community. On the right side, you have one of those wealthy buildings and the wealthy people living on it. Now, interestingly, just for a minute, think that you live on the left side here. So you live in Rocinha right now. Just think about it. You open up your window or you go outside, and what you look at is this nice thing on the right side of the screen. What do you think? You think it's fair? They don't think it's fair. Nobody living in Rocinha thinks this is fair. They think something is wrong. On the other hand, the people living on the right side, the wealthy ones, They wake up on Sunday morning, they go out to their patio and pool, and what is their view? It's not the sun, it's not something nice and neat, it's the community of Rocinha. Do they think it's, do you think they think it's fair? They don't think it's fair because they will say, I paid a lot of money for this place and look at what I got. Well, look at what I got outside. That's my view. That's not fair. So none of the sides think this is fair. Isn't that interesting? So it's not fair for anyone. How come? Because we are using parameters to make a judgment that are not the same as divine justice. We're using human parameters. For example, our truth is fragmented. I'm looking at just one aspect of the thing. I'm pinpointing the elements that make sense to me. For example, if you go to court, for example, somebody's going to have, somebody is going to be convicted or not. The lawyers, the attorneys, they have to pick the witnesses, and they will pick and choose the witnesses that they want. Not every witness. No, this one I want, this one I don't want, because the one I don't want is going to go against my interests. So this is fragmentation of justice. Our justice is based on revolt in general. So, we look at things, we revolt, and we judge based upon that feeling, that emotion. And for the most part, human justice looks a lot, or maybe in the first place, at materialism. Oh, they have these nice things and I don't. None of those three aspects are part of the divine justice. So that makes 6 aspects so far. We saw 3 before. These are 3 again here. All right, so let's collect more of these aspects that are not part of the divine justice by studying this case number 3, and I call this DNA exoneration. What is DNA exoneration? DNA exoneration happens when somebody is convicted, so they go into jail or incarcerated or whatever it is, and then later on, DNA evidence proves it wrong, proves that, well, this guy was supposedly criminal. He is not, because we checked the DNA found at the scene of the crime. We checked his DNA. It doesn't match, so he's free to go. So reverting this is called exoneration by DNA. Exoneration by DNA became a legal part of our justice system as of 1989. So it's relatively new, 1989. And from that day until now, we've had 367 exonerations. So from 1989 to today, 367 people had been convicted. They were undergoing their whatever conviction it was, and they were not the criminals. 367. Out of these 367, some numbers come up, and these numbers are absolutely alarming. First of all, to get exonerated, meaning really walk out of jail back into society, it takes an average of 14 years. Yeah, 14 years for something you didn't do. Most likely, you don't even know what the case is. 28% of these cases involve false confession. What is false confession? What does it mean? It means the person who was convicted and incarcerated was not the criminal, but those who really should be in jail, they do bullying, they pressure, well, your family is going to suffer for it, and you're going to suffer for it, somebody's going to pay for it in your family or so, if you don't say it was you. So because of that, a lot of people, they will take the blame and say, yeah, it was me. And they go to jail to spare the lives of their relatives and so. 28% of the cases. Now, out of those 367 cases, 21 of the convicted ones were serving death row. Can you imagine that? You don't even know what the crime is about, and you're on death row now. Something is wrong, right? I don't think God would do anything like this. There's more. Almost half of these cases, convicted people, because of forensic mistakes. Forensic mistakes can happen in two ways. One way is the evidence that it's in place is not really, all put together, is not an easy black and white analysis. So there's going to be some judgment from those who analyze. And, they just get it wrong. That's what we call involuntary forensic mistake. But there are voluntary forensic mistakes in which you choose to convict people to save or spare, somebody else, or to whatever it is. But there's intention. It's intention. And that happens in 50% of the cases. You send people to jail, incarcerate them, because somebody chose to not happen in a different way, to have a different outcome. And this is the most impressive of all. 70% of these cases, these people were convicted by visual ID. What is visual ID? We see that a lot in Hollywood movies, if you haven't been to a court yet. Visual ID. When you think you got somebody, the victim has to, or witnesses have to identify the guy or the criminal. So they put these people in a room where there's a window, a glass window, where these people, these supposedly criminals, supposedly one of them is a criminal, they don't see you, but from the other side, the witnesses and victims are in there, and they're going to pick one. They're going to look at all the 5, 6, 7 guys in line and going to say, oh, it was that one. So that is the victim telling the justice it was that one person. In 70% of the cases, the victim said it was him or her, and it wasn't. Wow, something is wrong, right? Something is wrong. What is wrong? It's the moral values of the entire system of justice, what it uses to outcome with results. The person mostly is in conflict. So all that matters now is put somebody in jail, and I got this done. Take it out of the way because you don't want to face it. And then you send anybody to jail. It doesn't really matter who. 70% of people convicted for something they had no idea. Really sad, right? Yes, it is. And that's where this guy comes in, R.T. Williams. He was one of these wrongly convicted fellows, and he spent a long time in jail, 32 years. 37 years. He was convicted for life in prison without the possibility for parole whatsoever. And he was accused of aggravated rape and murder of another person, raped one of them, murdered another one. So he spent his life, almost his entire life, in prison. He was exonerated by DNA in 1219. And he became very famous because the day he walked out of prison, he decided he was going to go in one of the most famous singer programs in the U.S., Americans Got Talent. And he sang a beautiful song by singer-composer Elton John. And he just struck us all in our hearts. How come did he spend 32 years in prison for something he didn't know? Let me give you a few facts here so it makes more sense what I'm going to say. First of all, he was not visually identified by the victim. The victim did not identify him. Although she was forced to, she did not identify him. She did not say it was him. No, she did not. There was total lack of evidence. The physical evidence, the height of the guy who committed the crime was around 5'11", told by the victim of the rape, and he is 5'4". People from 5'11" to 5'4", it's huge. So he said this guy's too short. They didn't listen to her, the victim. The fingerprints didn't match. Fingerprints at the scene. And he had alibis. He had people with him at the moment the crime was being committed. The serologist said the semen inside the body of the victim is not his. Still, he went to jail, 32 years in jail. How come? What is happening? And here's why. Because the people in charge of finding the guilty one, finding the criminal, they were afraid they weren't going to be able to show society they were good enough to catch the criminal. So it was just easier to put anybody in jail. It wouldn't matter. At least they said, well, here it is. We are really good. We got the guy. I don't think God does anything like this. By the way, when he was in jail, he used to think about the song he sang all the time. But he was, he was praying all the time. He's something he mentioned to us, to all of us through the press after he left jail. Freedom is of the mind. I went to prison, but I never let my mind go to prison. Similar to Nelson Mandela, right? When you're faced with dark times, what I would do is pray and sing. This is how I got peace. So internally, he was in peace. Of course, he didn't do any of that. So he was in peace. And the world out there had convicted them, was all concerned about them. Such a, quote, dangerous guy out there in our society. So that's him. In 2019, you see, he went out of prison, as you see here on the screen on March 21st. On March 14, a week after that, the people of the Innocence Project had access to the evidence that was never brought up in all these 30-some years. After they put their hands on the evidence, 7 hours later, he was not convicted anymore. He was, his outcome was changed. He was released to prison 7 days after that. So we couldn't even get back to the evidence of the crime. That's sad, really sad. The Innocence Project that I just mentioned is a project, it's a group of voluntary people in the US that work with this judicial system trying to avoid cases where conviction, wrongful convictions, and they work based on DNA exonerations. That's the group of people who helped Archie Williams to get out of jail. Otherwise, he would still be there for something he never committed. So there are more aspects that we used, that we have to look into our human justice, and they are not part of divine justice. First of all, we fail. Yes, we fail. Number two, the police officers in this case, the people in charge of the case, they wanted to do justice by themselves, in one's own hand. They wanted to do that themselves. It didn't matter who was going to jail. It didn't matter. They had to have the feeling and the sensation to tell the society, we've done it, we've caught him. And finally, here in this case, our justice is based a lot, if not all the time, in revenge. None of these things is part of the divine justice. None of them. So we use parameters in our divine justice, human justice, that God does not. I want to show you this last case here, which I call points of view. I'm going to show you a very, very short video. It's just a few seconds, so pay attention to that. Just watch. Okay, I don't know about you, but I'm going to tell you what I see. I see a guy, this bald guy, coming after this gentleman, and he's going to rob the gentleman. He's going to take his briefcase, he's just going to rob him. That's me. I don't know what you think. That's me. Okay? Let's take another view, a broader view of this. So you see, the guy doesn't come from a close place. He comes from far. He really comes far, and he goes into towards the gentleman to get his briefcase. That's what I think. All right, let's have an even broader view of this thing. So again, he comes out there from very far towards the gentleman. So the gentleman tries to kind of protect himself. And this might change your mind. It changed mine. Wow. I would have convicted somebody who was a savior. Did we ever put any Savior on the cross? Savior in quotes? Doesn't it make any sense to you? Right? You see, we use parameters that are not part of divine justice. This is personal justice. I myself, I'm speaking for myself. I looked at the scene, the first scene, and I said, this guy's guilty. Let's get him. Let's book him. Personal justice. Punctual justice. I just looked at the fraction of second that the guy was approaching the gentleman and grabbing himself by his hands. And third, we tend to look at the expressed cruelty. Expressed cruelty is not an expression that I created or I came up with. It's by Spirit Emmanuel. Expressed cruelty. Our justice system looks for that. We as humans, when we judge somebody, we look at the expressed cruelty. So that's why our justice fails. If we go broader, past one lifetime, we know we are immortal spirits, so we incarnate, discarnate, incarnate, discarnate, and through a sequence of these, we get better towards perfection. So let's say that on a certain incarnated life, this one here you see on the screen, I commit some sort of crime right there, right on that spot. Human justice is gonna look at that one point in the whole span of things. It's gonna look into that one point and make a decision. The outcome comes from that one, from kind of putting a magnifier on that one spot and making a decision. Divine justice looks at everything that from simple and ignorant until that moment. And that's where the outcome, that's when the outcome is produced. There's a huge difference. Reincarnation. We don't have that in human justice. It doesn't even make sense for our justice to consider reincarnation. So our justice is always going to be fragmented. So reincarnation changes everything. That is the key for divine justice and to bring us the outcomes necessary. Really quick, without going into much details on this, because that's not our purpose today, but from God, we know from the Spirit's book, two things come out: spiritual principle, material principle. The spiritual principle will develop from simple and ignorant, becomes intelligent principle, later on becomes spirit that produces a perispirit and a physical body. Human justice, and this is several different layers here, right? Human justice is only at the physical body level. There is no point, it makes no sense to talk about human justice and perispirit, spirit, intelligent principle. That's not what our justice looks at. It can't get past the material level. Our justice is for the incarnate life. When you die, whatever the outcome does not apply anymore. So there's a tremendous difference between human justice and divine justice. Let's try to just list them together here, see if we can get a better understanding, a better overview of this. What is the range of our justice? It's just here, where I am, my group, it's tribal, it's personal, social, maybe, the country, but that's it. Divine justice is universal. We use as a reference to make something right or wrong, legal or illegal. We use our references. What is the reference? It's something that we wrote ourselves. So I can write a set of laws. You're listening to me. You can write your own set of laws that they don't align. So which one do I use? You see, our references are created by ourselves. Divine justice uses one reference, which is the greatest law of all: justice, love, and charity. The foundation for our human justice is revenge and judgment. For divine justice is not. It's universal balance. You did something here that disturbed the universe per se, you're going to have to do something else that fixes it later. And it doesn't have to be in the same form. It doesn't have to be an eye for an eye. You kill people in this life, next life you're going to maybe save lives. On another incarnation, you're going to be a doctor. Maybe you work with children in daycare. You're going to save lives. The integrity of our laws. It's awful because it's all fragmented. The truth are pick and choose. I pick and choose what's true, what's not. There are nuances, favoritisms. There's no such a thing in divine justice. It's impartial, comprehensive, same for all periods. Longevity of our human justice. Well, we keep changing it. It lives because we keep changing. Well, let's adapt this and let's adapt that. Now things change here and there. We saw several cases here. Divine justice does not take any of that. It's eternal, doesn't change, and it's timeless. Our justice accepts and takes influences from cultural levels, social status, and different things. Divine justice, it can only be influenced by one thing, the level of responsibility of those who transgress, cause the transgressions. Our laws use relative references, divine law doesn't. What do I mean? Well, think about this. Go back, say, 20 years in time. Think about the very first, but really the very first cybercrime. What is a cybercrime? Somebody with a computer stole money from one bank account to another bank account. Okay? So let's say you stole money 20 years ago, and then you got caught. This guy got caught. What kind of penalty am I going to give it to him? There's no reference. Nothing ever was done. So I'm just going to say like this. I'm going to have to create a new law or a new something. And I'm going to say, this guy stole $1 million. He's going to spend, let's just say, 1 year in jail. 1 year later, somebody else commits a cybercrime and steals $10 million. What am I going to do? Well, I'm going to use references that I created myself. Wow, this last year, this guy committed a crime. He stole $1 million. He spent 1 year in jail. This guy now stole $10 million. He's going to spend 10 years in jail. Relative references. There is no such a thing in divine justice. Our laws are flexible. They allow for negotiation, talks, bargain. Divine law is personal, not transferable. Period. The purpose of our human laws is re-education for the material life. The purpose of divine justice, re-education for spiritual life. You see, you're never gonna see here in our divine justice something like this. Your crime was so horrible, so horrible, so horrible that you're gonna spend the rest of this life in prison and the first 10 years of your next life. It doesn't make any sense, right? Yeah, but it does for divine justice. So the purpose is different. The max penalty on our system here, in our justice system, is either life in prison or death row. Divine justice, so it has a limit. It has a limit because when the physical life ends, the penalty is done. Not in divine justice. You're going to be paying until you offset what you did. And that comes with personal improvement. The visibility of our law is very punctual. I look at what I see at that time, at that point in time. Divine justice looks at something different, to each according to their deeds. It's a different way of seeing things. It's a different angle altogether. Our justice clings to materialism. Divine justice does not. It's a cosmic thing. Everybody, anytime, anywhere. The judges in our system are third-party people. For example, I committed a crime against somebody. We go to court, both of us. The person who's going to make a judgment is a third person who doesn't know me and doesn't know him. It's totally separate. He's going to just read the evidences and make a judgment. In divine justice, the judge is the offender. Can you imagine our justice system? If we get here and we go to jail for some reason, and the judge comes to us and says, listen, you're being accused of this, 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 and this, and we have proven that, and you have acknowledged. What kind of penalty do you want to give to yourself? It wouldn't work. It would not work. But that's how it is in divine justice. And finally, lastly here on this list, the focus of our justice is, as Emmanuel says, the express cruelty, and the divine justice doesn't look into that. It considers the positive outcome. That makes our justice imbalanced and divine justice is not. Okay? I'm looking at the list here. We're going to focus a little bit on this last line. Human justice looks at the express cruelty. Divine justice considers the positive outcome. And that, by Spirit Emmanuel, is what we are going to use to respond to this question, coming back to it. Do you think the crucifixion of Jesus was just and fair, and why? I'm going to say this. If Jesus had died of an old age, we wouldn't have the same outcome that we had with the way things happened. We would not have half of the planet following him. The outcome made it just. Although several of us, still think it wasn't. For those of us who think it wasn't, we need to understand a little bit more. It needs to be a little more clear for all of us what is divine justice. And it had to be the way it was. So because we don't understand all of that, we get hit by the divine justice truck all the time. We get ran over by it several times a day because we are looking at the manifest cruelty, the expressed cruelty. In the book Heaven and Hell, Allan Kardec publishes something very interesting called the Penal Code for the Future Life. What is the Penal Code for the Future Life? It's like a penal code. Well, what is a penal code for our justice here in any of our countries? It's a list of, if you do this, that's going to happen. For example, let's just make it simple. If you rob somebody, you're going to spend 1 year in jail. If you kill somebody, 10 years in jail. And so I don't have to kill somebody to make sure I'm going to spend 10 years in jail. It's already written. The Penal Code of the Future Life in the book Heaven and Hell is exactly the same thing, but not for an incarnate life, for the immortal spirit. So if we do this type of transgression, this is what's going to happen. If we do that type of transgression, this is what's going to happen. It's all in there. We don't have to commit those to know what's going to happen to us. And I wanted to bring it to a final thought here. Visualize a tennis game. I'm giving you a picture here to make it easier for you. So you physically go to watch the tennis game. So you're sitting somewhere in here and you're watching the two players play. Okay. Suddenly the ball, and you know the speeds here are like 100 kilometers an hour, 90 kilometers an hour. It's outrageous speeds that the ball goes to, is thrown at. So let's say the ball hits right on the line. And you're sitting, let's say, in this position here, A. And I look at it, and the thing is really fast. And I look at it and I say, no, the ball hit in the court, within the court. Okay, the guy in B says, no way, sir, because I was in the game. I was right there watching with you. And it was outside the boundary. So I was in, he was in. We have different opinions. So does C has a different opinion. So does D, and so does E. So how come? We were all watching the same thing at the same time. We all have different views, different opinions. And it's not that I'm watching over the television. No, I'm physically sitting there, all of us, all five of us here. And if the stadium has a capacity for 60,000 people, we're going to have 60,000 different results. And I'm going to go home and say, well, there was this particular, thing where, the ball was in, they said it was out, and so on, they're going to believe me. And the guy sitting in B goes to his house, he tells the same thing to his people believe in him, and so and so and so and so. So what is happening? What is happening is we are just observers. We don't have the power to influence, to change the position where the ball hits, to make myself right or wrong. If it was my interest that I'm the player I'm supporting, right? If it would be better for him that the ball hit outside, I'm going to say, no, yeah, it was outside because I saw it. If the player I'm supporting would benefit from the ball hitting inside, I would say it hit inside, I was there and I saw it. We are just observers. We can't change what happens. What we see is not the truth. What we see are possibilities. Our truth is all fragmented. For me to tell the truth with a capital T, I would have to be at the same time in all 60,000 seats in the stadium. I can't do that. I can't do that. That means I am not omnipresent. I cannot be in all 60,000 places at the same time. Only one can do that. I cannot know everything because I wasn't in all 60,000 seats at the same time. So I don't have full knowledge of things. So I cannot make things happen because I don't have that power. I'm just observer. What we see are possibilities. We work with possibilities, not truth. And because we don't have these attributes, omnipresence, omniscience, and omnipotency, we are very limited. Those are things used by divine justice, and I don't have a way to use those. That in itself differentiates, besides all the other ones, aspects from divine justice from human justice. Coming back to the big question, was it fair, just and fair, that he was put in a cross? Well, we are still different people. We might have different opinions. I just gave you some elements to think about, not to convince you, not to anything else. Okay? This is something you should take to the pillow at night. It's an interesting thing. That's how we start dealing with the elements of divine justice. Maybe changing our mind a little bit. Okay. All right, guys. That's what I wanted to bring to you. So if there are any questions, if we need to address something, please feel free. I'm just going to shut down my screen here so we can keep discussing the issue. Thank you. Mhm. No, revolt never. By the way, Spirit Emmanuel says revolt is synonymous with incomprehension. If you revolt, there's something you're not understanding. So stop revolting. Stop. There's no point. There's something I'm not understanding. Let me see what it is. We might not get the answer right away in 5 minutes, but stop revolting. That's never advisable. Okay. So yeah, a lot of the things that we see in our society, they cause revolt. We want to just, get out of our houses and get our hands and do something. No, it's not going to help anything. What we can do is, first of all, internalize all of this, comprehend what this is, and then start promoting for ourselves first. I need to be part of this thing. I can no longer do, these types of transgressions and so. And once this is being in practice, we are going to take it outside. You see, I have to have these things automated in my perispirit first, and then I can, by example, bring it to others. How much do you think Jesus had to suffer and think before he did some sort of charity? Even the simplest. Didn't have to, oh my God, tomorrow morning I need to do charity. Never. It was automated in his perispirit. For us to do charity, we have to build a strategy. Oh, I see that person right on the street. He needs some money to eat. Should I give him money? Is he going to go buy drugs? You see, that strategy, that's not charity. That charity is not automated in our perispirit. So yes, what we need to do is automate these things in our perispirit first. How can I do that? Number one, understanding the difference, time and place, all of these things that we discuss here, they are not part of human justice. They are not part of divine justice. We use them. If I still use them, stop, because they're not right. I changed my response for years and years and years until I came across with something called what do they call? Oh, Spiritism. Yeah, you see, until then, yeah, he was unfair because he was a good guy and he didn't do anything. I was completely. It's a materialistic approach. I was looking at the express cruelty, but then, like I said, if he had died from old age, we wouldn't be here, any of us. This meeting wouldn't be happening anywhere, because there was a greater purpose, and for that purpose to take place and to be converted into goodness for all men on earth, it had to happen the way it did. So I was looking at myself, responding for myself. I was looking for this express cruelty. Now I don't. Now I look for the outcome. What came out of it? All of them. All of them. For example, if you're being accused of something you didn't do, okay, sometimes we are and we don't even know, because those accusing us are, they don't have any relation to us anymore. They just think we did this and that. Sometimes it's things that happened 20 years ago, 30, 40 years ago. So those we don't know. But sometimes the people throw right in our faces. You did this and this and this. Revolt is the last thing, because when you revolt, you're aligning with that type of energy. Last thing, never revolt. So let's just pray for that person, that the outcome of this, they accusing me of something, that the outcome of this is beneficial for that person. And that's my prayer. That person has to learn something. To learn something, that person has to make mistakes. I'm providing the ability and the resources for that person to make the mistake and then grow from there. Yes, according to Spiritist a line of thought, yes. That the Spiritist philosophy, that's a philosophy. Okay, yes. Right. Sometimes we see something on television that had nothing to do with us, somebody doing something else to a third person. But we're just watching, and yeah, the sun comes up all the way up. The blood comes, you want to just hit the television. Yes, it happens. But that does not help any of the two people involved, and it still makes it worse for me. Revolt is only good if it triggers some sort of action. Okay. So, for example, you watch a certain news and you revolt. On that very minute, you say, "Oh my God, I shouldn't be doing this." You see, that was a positive way of seeing the real. Oh, it's gonna trigger something. My God, I can't do this again. Wow, what a mistake that I'm making. I shouldn't be doing this. yes, we're going to revolt. We're still going to revolt because of the level that we are in terms of moral evolution. We are still going to be doing this, but less and less and less and less, to a point where not revolting gets automated in our perispirit. And then we don't revolt anymore. We act upon what we see, but without any revolt. Yeah, if you look at the Spiritist categories that Allan Kardec put together, starting from the impure all the way up to the pure ones, the less advanced the spirit is, the more it's going to be doing this. The more it's going to be, living and feeding injustices of all types, anything like this. As the spirit progresses and keeps coming towards superior spirits, good spirits, that diminishes automatically to a point where it will no longer happen again. But yes, a lot of these groups, and I'll tell you one thing, I get a lot of this in our talks and our conversations of people saying, well, it looks like everything's getting worse. Everything's worse now than 3 years ago, than 5 years ago, than 10 years ago. It wasn't ever so bad as it is. Okay, that's revolt, right? Okay, this is what we should think. If we are gonna go to the next level in planetary terms, meaning we're gonna get away from trials and expiations into regeneration, all the spirits that are part of the planet, all of them, incarnate and discarnate, they have to evolve. Those who are not able to evolve, they will be transmigrated somewhere else. Now, if we are 7 billion here incarnated and 20 billion discarnated,
We may have had a little
those
glitch.
20 billion, they have to live and incarnate those spirits, and they will have their opportunity. If they don't do it, they'll be transmigrated. But all of the spirits out there that are today's part of the psychosphere of the planet, they have to be incarnated first. So yes, it's going to get worse before it gets better. It has to, because it's a natural course of things. Those spirits sitting out there in the dark zones and so, they have to come down to prove to themselves, oh, I can't make in this planet anymore. I need to be somewhere else. But they have to be given that opportunity. And being given that opportunity is part of divine justice.
Perfect, Luis. Thank you. Thank you so much for, again, the provocative thoughts. We have a lot of great stuff to think about. So this was tremendous talk. So thank you so much for being here with us again. I will invite our dear friend Christina Borneo then to take us to the next activity here, which is our final prayer and irradiation, and then Claudine is going to give us our final announcements. So Christina.
Oh,
Yes, I'm here, sorry.
No problem.
Thank you, Luis. So let's close our eyes and let's concentrate. Dear God, our Father, Jesus, our beloved Master, spiritual mentors of Sunrise, our individual mentors who are always by our side, inspiring us, giving us encouragement each day. With deep respect, we are grateful to you for being able to reach the end of another meeting, learning the gospel of love, helping and being helped. We thank Luis for the lecture this morning and for his beautiful work. We thank all Sunrise workers and volunteers. At this moment, we want to raise our thoughts to God our Father, Jesus, the supreme architect of the universe, and with open hearts, we thank the opportunity that has been given to us. We ask our guides and protectors for more light, and for our brothers who still walk in the darkness, a spark of your love, so that they can enter in the path of progress. May we, at the next meeting, be gathered here in the practice of the good of love, and may your phalanges of workers support us, help and strengthen our faith. Peace and light for all of us, for those who are unable to attend today's meeting, for our families, friends, for all of humanity, for the sick of body and soul, incarnate or disincarnated. We ask for this country that welcomes us, and for our home country, Brazil, that suffers so much from COVID and so many other difficulties. Father, help us to overcome our fears, to open our minds and hearts, to react to all moments as your child, knowing how to love and respect, forgive and dream of the union of all brothers. Father, I'm your daughter, and you are my graced friend. So we ask for blessing of our souls, peace in our rest, and affection in our solitude. So be it.
So be it.
Thank you, Christina, very much for the beautiful prayer. And I'm gonna invite Claudinha then for the final announcements.
Are you guys listening to me?
Yes.
Loud and clear.
Edu, yes? Okay. First we'd like to say thank you to Luiz for being our guest this morning. Then we would like to welcome all of you that are here for the first time. And we invite you to take a look at our website and our calendar to see other activities that we offer. On Sundays, we also have the children and youth education that also happens between 10:30 and 11:30, but on different virtual rooms. Today, specifically, our teenagers are here with us in this room. We also offer other studies and assistance during the week. On this first slide, we're going to talk about it. A wonderful work that our guest, Luiz Lima, that's here today with us, he also does. I put the link also on our chat, and he does on every Wednesday on the Kardec Radio on YouTube at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, meaning here in Houston is at 6 p.m. And for our friends that are listening from Brazil, it's at 8 o'clock at night in Brazil. He does this show on YouTube where he brings in-depth discussions on evolution as portrayed by the Spiritism. He brings topics as the creation, spirit, reincarnation, progress, and much more. So if you go to the Kardec Radio channel on YouTube and you hit subscribe, you can also find the show called Spiritism, A Closer Look, and you can click on Set Reminder. And that way, before the show comes on, you receive a notification as a reminder, so you don't forget. On this other slide, we're going to talk about our April volunteering work, which is help with the Formiguinhas program. Formiguinhas in Portuguese means ants. Raquel Marshall, it's a Brazilian that lives here in Houston. She started this program in 2019 with the goal of raising donations and helping the Houston street population. Since then, the Formiguinhas the little ants, they have provided many meals and service for this population. So you might be asking, how can I help? Well, you can, of course, donate some items. They also have an Amazon list that the link is here, but I will also post on our website and our social medias. And you can also help by volunteering to make the food, to deliver the food. Usually she does on Sunday. You can go with her on the delivery day. She sometimes go other days of the week. You can also provide a service for this community. We had a person that did a Princess Day at her salon for the ladies. And one of the ladies actually went for interview after that. So you can help in many other ways. But for more details, please contact Raquel at her phone number. Her phone number will also be in our social medias and on our website. That's all that we have for this week. And we wish all of you an awesome week. And I'll see you guys soon.
Thank you very much, Claudinha. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Luis, very much again for being here with us. Heartfelt thank you, and everyone have a blessed rest of Sunday and week. And we'll talk to you next week. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.